not even gonna look at you. She's gonna she'll squirt down.
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna go behind. Right. It's been a day. Well, thanks first of all for coming. Oh, Laura was gonna introduce me. But
I was, yes.
she was just gonna say that thing was
The one and only Don Rossbach.
all around extraordinary.
Amazing, incredible, and very fascinating project that she has.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for everybody that's here. You know what your supporters are, that's for sure. I'm losing my voice all of a sudden. Oh, done. A lot of people kind of first ask, what's this all about? And so I wrote a grant based on my aphantasia. And if you don't know what aphantasia is, it's image-free thinking, or the inability to pull up images in your brain. So for some of you, like if I say picture an apple, everybody got that picture in their head, okay? It might be very, very vivid. It might be kind of more of a shape. For those of us with aphantasia, we have no images. So if I shut my eyes, it's completely blank or black. So in the process and course of things, I think it was back in 2019 or so, I read an article from the New York Times about this. And I seriously just poo-pooed it. I said, this is hogwash, that's not possible. And 2020 comes along, I read another article in the New York Times. In fact, I have it in my pocket. It's called Living with Aphantasia, the Inability to Make Mental Images. When the mind's eye cannot see, counting sheep or navigating streets with a mental map can be impossible. And I'm like, all right, so I read the article. And my family happened to be up. It was during COVID where all lives changed, right? And so we're sitting on the porch enjoying some beverages. And I bring this article up and I say, you guys can't see things, in your brain. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, no, you can't. Well, yeah. And I'm like, it took a little bit for them to convince me that they really could, So, time goes on. It's 2021. I'm teaching from home, So all of that has got put back to the back burner, And then I think Andrew Z from KXC did an interview with me, and I'm kind of talking about. He interviewed me as an artist, but it comes up about the aphantasia, and this young lady over here comes to see Laura's show, back in March, and she says, I listened to your interview, and she goes, you seismically changed my life. And I'm like, what? And she said, when you said you had aphantasia, described it, she goes, I realized I did too. And she said, it has just taken this big load off of my shoulders.
Wow.
Because both of us were experiencing kind of the same thing at the same time, because I also have, probably, it's not an official diagnosis, but a thing called SDAM, which is severe deficiency autobiographical memory. So it's very hard to remember events on my own, without some like photo prompt or something like that. And there's also a connection with comprehension and learning that could be tied in with both of those as well. And that's when I kind of started thinking about this a little bit more. Laura kept talking to people in the gallery that I had aphantasia, and their questions were, well, how can she be an artist? Yeah. Well, then I started thinking, well, how can I be an artist? I don't know, So that was what the grant was about, was trying to discover my process, especially through painting. And then the other goal was to get it out to teachers and to people who work with visualization techniques in their jobs, like therapists, for example, because that counting sheep was just a metaphor for us, people like us. I should note that 3 to 4% of the population, although have you been reading, it might be a little bit more,
I only read. And deliver to me.
I send her some things once in a while. Anyway, so that became the goal of the grant, is just to basically make an awareness. So my process became, I was originally going to do the tools like this, the apparitions, which are the, kind of abstract pieces, things that appear from nowhere is what apparition means, and that's kind of how these happen. And then memory paintings, but the memory paintings and the apparitions kind of merged together after a bit. So my process was, I started with the hammer, was the first one, but I would paint the tool without the object being there, without a photo being there, and obviously, since I have nothing up here, never comes out right. But no brain reference, right? So I painted the tools, then I would take a photograph of this and then sent it down to White House and had prints made of them. When the prints came back, then I got the tool out to be able to compare, how close I got, to it. So these are my little notes on there, like it should be a little thinner, this, I'm missing a complete piece or curved over here a little bit, whatever. And in most cases, I thought I did pretty good. Funny story on the hammer is, it's just a red handle. And then on the second one, I have it where it's this vinyl grip that was supposed to be there, that's a black grip. And I went, oh shoot, I missed that completely, And 3 weeks later, after I did it, in the basement, I'm going through some tools, and sure enough, there's another red hammered tool with no grip on it, so I was right the whole time. But anyway, but kind of during the discovery of painting these, I figured out that I was using knowledge of how it felt, to me. So like I knew, like for example, like the pliers, I can kind of feel the vinyl grips on that, and I knew it was metal. I knew they crossed over, and I thought about how the tool is used, so that helped guide me. And they think, some of the research I've done is they think what is happening is like when you look at an object, and it goes through your eyes and your retinas and back and gets stored in your brain, then when you want to retrieve it, it comes out through the neurons or whatever. They think in people like us that those things are either warped or stretched, so it can't come out completely into the brain as far as the image goes. So, so that was kind of the process on those. And then these here, I think the one over here in the corner called the Three Maidens, those, some of them I just started out like with a kind of just random line, just let my hand kind of just walk across, the canvas, right? And then it was like probably the closest tube of paint to me, because I'm gonna be lazy, I'm not gonna go digging for colors, just squirt that on the palette, or if there's some left over, use that and start painting. This particular image is where things started to change a little bit, because those three large shapes, I'm like, oh man, those remind me of those three rocks at the Pipestone National Monument where I used to live, so, and they were called the Three Maidens, very big rocks that we would play around. And as I continued painting on that, more memories of that time started resurfacing. So they became kind of this catalyst for bringing memories back to me, which I can't pull up on my own. So that was kind of that thing. And then the two of my other favorites, though, are over behind Ramona. One is called Counting Sheep at the Harborview Cafe, because I'm making a play on the counting sheep. So these little shapes up there reminded me, it's like, oh, they're kind of clouds, we have clouds in the sky, and then I said, oh, they kind of look like sheep, so I put little legs and little noses on it. And that whole metaphor for me, is, you know, count sheep to help you get to sleep. Well, that was stupid, you know. And then and the other part of it, you know, where the X is supposed to be where the Harbor View Cafe is, which is also, you know, a big part of some of the memories. A favorite restaurant down in Pepin. I used to live on Lake Pepin on Main Rock above the bluffs. And then Coeur d'Alene is a place that we visited, so that kind of reminded me. That's right by Cindy there. Would you please thank you?
Van away.
Okay. Yeah, so, and then that also has some counting sheep because I kind of thought that was pretty funny. So. But the graffiti moose over here, some of you can't probably see it with the post there, but that one, that moose, I've done a graffiti moose that was over at New York Mills and walked off the walls, and it's in New York now, which again, in both of those cases, this moose shape just shows up. You know, it's like, I don't have control over it. It's kind of just painting, it's just happening. It's like, oh, it's a moose, you know? So, yeah, so that's graffiti moose 2. I think, I don't know if I have much more to say. I think I've gone through kind of the processes well enough. Questions? Oh, please.
So what's the difference, the way you described how you not picture these, but the way you draw that was you say, okay, I take a memory, I know that they cross, I know that they do this. How is that different than visualizing a picture of it? Because to me, that's imagination to visualize the picture, but I don't know, maybe I have the disorder myself, but I can't, I don't understand the difference, I guess.
I know people can pull up images in their mind to reference.
Okay.
So without having any reference at all, it was like, okay, where am I pulling this information from? And that was kind of part of my process, is like trying to discover how I am doing things, because my skill set is strong enough to know, to be able to make things look realistic, you know? And it was like, how am I doing that without these references, you know, so including up here.
It's a lot better than I would do if I had the thing right in front of me.
Well, and that's an interesting thing, because like when I was teaching, I really honed in on observation and technical things, so I think that was always part of my life, but then I got an extra 24 years of even stronger observational skills and honing those up, because I was teaching, and with Tiffany being here, she's also an art teacher too. I'm not sure how she approaches what she says to students when they're drawing and how I did it, because I would use those metaphors like, well, picture in your mind's eye. Well, I didn't even know that that was a real thing, you know? So
You're like lying.
So, I mean, there's still a lot of unanswered questions, you know, so I don't know if I can
Well, 'cause
answer
in a
your
sense,
question.
for everybody,
Yeah.
it has to be a concept because the object isn't physically there. My follow-up question is, how long since you had seen these objects was it between when you did that and then you painted them freehand? So how long?
Oh, some of them were a long time. In fact, what was it? The drill. I couldn't find, you know. I said, I know it's in the basement. I know it's here, you know. So, I mean, it had been years and years and years. The weird thing, though, is when I drew on top of the print part, it's like, oh, you can remove the bit. And I missed that completely. But there was a hand drill in the closet over, I don't know if it's still there. Probably gone long gone. Okay. Anyway, that I left in the art room, you know, that was there. And I think it was a single bit drill. So there was some, just like the hammer, like there was really.
Overlap of two different hammers.
Right.
Let's try to find it.
Yeah.
So basic,
Let me know if you do and what it is, yeah.
So basically, you're saying you were pulling more from how you used the item, how you felt the item,
Yes.
as opposed to seeing the item.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what you were pulling from, and
Yes.
because you do have so many skills, you know how to
Make it
draw
more
that.
three-dimensional.
Or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to
Okay.
narrow it down.
did
'Cause
you
like,
s- did-
like this, I can kind
You
of
can
feel the
feel it.
wood,
Yeah.
you know, in the middle, yeah.
They're all so pretty.
Oh. Thank you so much.
When you were describing one of these, where you just start putting lines on the paper or letting it kind of come to you, it sounds like more work could be done to understand how that could help, not maybe heal, maybe that's not even necessary, but have people investigate getting memories back.
I think that was a big thing for me. Yeah, that, especially that painting where that switched. I would say that was painting number 5 of the big ones out of the 10.
So
And-
using that as a way for people.
Right, to
with
pull
that.
up some stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like another grant that is needed.
Right.
Well, that would
Yeah.
be like, that would be a study into like art therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where you just start,
Which,
paint, just
Yeah.
start, and then
I
think.
just got a book too, I haven't even started reading it, but it's about how the body keeps score. It's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, actors use that,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but there's some reference, I think, into it about like, especially with trauma and stuff like that, and so then you wonder,
Yeah.
you know.
I'd love to see a study for individuals who have the ability that you have
Right.
to use that.
Tap into that,
Yeah,
yeah.
to find out similarities.
Right.
between-
Right, interesting.
One of your videos or talks or links describes something that connected with me, was the clipboards that you can probably do it better than me. Described that most of us have functional, fast-moving clipboards, and we have a verbal clipboard and a visual clipboard. So as we're going through our life, literally we're sorting information on the fly with these accessible clipboards. What the person explained in the podcast or the article is that Aphantasia doesn't have the visual clipboard.
Right.
So it's just a verbal clipboard. And as a person who didn't even realize I had it, but also as an aging person, I kind of started to get in a panic because I think now with a seismic change that happened with me was I think I spent a lot of energy trying to mentally keep up by making verbal connections and structures. So I think I became very structured and very verbally structured. And then when I retired, then I thought, I am sick of being structured. I want to be unstructured. but then if I don't have structure, then I really didn't have anything. Like if I didn't have a picture, I didn't have anything. And what if someone tested me for Alzheimer's and they put a tray out with all these objects?
Oh, and they
I'm
have to
literally
remember,
in
yeah.
my mind trying to go clock, watch, to whatever,
Yeah.
and then try to
Yeah.
make a trick in my mind, but I don't have the mental clipboard.
Yeah.
So I think that's the
That's-
piece
that's-
of,
yeah.
and you inspire me because you are very intelligent and curious, and so as a person that maybe has tried to, not really known, but tried to catch up, like some of the systems, like working systems, we're gonna go paperless. Well, that just takes everybody's, like, well, I went total panic. Or I did MRI imaging, and some of the MRI positions for looking for tendons were quite complicated. Well, what ended up happening was then they put literally x-rays, a folder of those complicated positions, and I pulled that out every single time. Even though I'd done hundreds of them, I still
You
had
needed
the
that
verbal
reference,
because
yeah.
I needed that clip.
Yeah.
So I think that this actually kind of helps open up a little bit of shame associated with people not being able to keep up, maybe.
And it's interesting about the whole cognitive thing. My mother was recently, she did a fall, so she's in transitional care unit here this last couple weeks, and they did a bunch of cognitive tests. And I'm like, I'm not gonna remember that. I'm, 25, 30 years younger than her. I'm not gonna remember that. And so when they do the cognitive tests on me, I'm gonna fail every time, you know, and I already know it, you know, so, you know, this here, this awareness then, you know, would be a good thing for those things, you know.
Yeah.
Right. And as a teacher, it's made a difference with me already, because I have these imaging exercises, and then I've told students, if you need to look up an image, that's okay. Like, don't feel bad about that. You know, and they're just sketching practices to kind of walk through,
Sure.
you know, imagining something.
Right.
But it has helped me to go, okay, I just assumed everybody could imagine,
Right,
kind of
right.
like a dream. You know, although
And I had no idea they could.
well, although you said in your dreams you can.
Yeah,
imagine
yeah,
things.
I can dream. I dream very vividly, you know, and I don't, most of the time I don't, you know, when you wake up, where they kind of float off real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Sorry.
Raise your hand.
Right, Dawn, I was intrigued by your comment about the moose, saying that you were doing the painting, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, that's a moose. How is that? That is you see things, right? It's just like you're painting, or you're looking at something and all of a sudden, oh, there's a dog, oh, there's this. Where does that tie into your aphantasia?
Aphantasia, it's part of the apparitions for me is letting that happen and letting them come out, where I was I think most of my art career, I was always trying to be super controlled. You know, so controlled. I mean, my goal as like a high school student, I wanted it to be as real as possible, you know, and I think that's why I was such a technical teacher, you know, I think that still kind of carried over. So, I mean, the whole abstract thing is just in the last 2-3 years. I mean, because anything I ever did abstract was horrible. It was just muddy, it was ugly, you know. This painting here probably started, this one right here, probably started out, you know, as a failure. And it's got layers upon layers upon layers, you know. But then I contacted this guy on Instagram. I didn't think he would write back to me and said, love your work, blah, blah, blah. Can you give me any advice? I have aphantasia, blah, blah, blah. And he wrote back, he says, God, it sounds exactly what I'd like to have. I'd like to have a blank mind to start. Yeah. All right, well. But he brought me down to, he says, just go back to the basics. You know, go back to rule of thirds, composition, complementary colors. And that's kind of what I did. And then I allowed myself to just get rid of the, don't try to be technical and work with those few little basic tools. And then those things would appear because, you know, I'd throw down some paint and went, whoa, look at that, you know. So, you know, like this one here is a very good example of just starting out with just drawing a line across the canvas. And that seems to be a rhythm I have, you know, kind of almost like a memory muscle in my arm. You know, if you start looking, you can kind of see those lines going across. They might be different heights, but there's a lot of lines going, you know. So yeah, that's kind of that process. But
I have a question. In doing this project, this specific project, with the awareness that you brought to it and the questions and explorations that you brought to it, have you noticed any change in how you're experiencing your aphantasia? Like, do you feel like your brain has changed any? Or is it still exactly the same as it was when you started your exploration?
you know, it's gonna be interesting because I think I haven't really done anything since I finished this work because, well, just some life things, right?
Yep.
And so, but I have you might have seen it, the large doppelganger spirit tree painting. I look at that and it's like, this needs to change a lot, you know, so, because so I have a feeling it's going to change, but I don't think right at this very moment, I've absorbed enough of this to know what's gonna happen next, you know.
Cause kind of as a follow-up, I think, we'd had kind of a conversation over dinner some time ago about this, that as these things are being explored as teachers, identifying, children at very young ages with this, is there, not to say it's a deficiency or anything, but a way to rebuild
To
those
accommodate for
neural
that?
pathways, so that maybe they do make the connections that are faster, or
Or just strategies and
strategies.
how do I work with this?
Right, and I think that's yet to be figured out, for me, like if we just go back to, I had the information there, how it felt and stuff, that might be just a prompt, think about how it feels, or think about how it works, in a drawing situation. Now, other areas, like let's say it's gonna be, math or, English or science or something like that, I'm not sure what the strategies would be, to help that student, cause that whole comprehension thing is, and it's not for every AFANT, I don't know what those answers are, but I guess I feel like, for me, it's like, if I can bring enough awareness so somebody else can take that and figure out those strategies.
and figured out if it's fixed or if it's.
Or what they can do to help that student learn better.
And how that affects other math, how does that affect mathematics and physics and,
Right,
yeah,
other areas.
Yeah, I mean, how much brain visualization
You know,
are people
Cause
using?
most AFANTs go into engineering and, sciences and analytics. They're really good at those kinds of things. So that's why it was so unusual for me, cause first of all, you have 3 to 4% people who have this, and then you have even less, very few people who are artists, doing that because of the lack of visualization, so. It's I'm just hoping to
Well, I feel like
pass it on.
on
but-
that note, well, if we're aware of the different learning styles and like visual and verbal and I'm trying to think.
Oh, kinetic and.
Kinetic and whatever, that we could possibly use that to figure out some sort of way to accommodate those students. I know that there's one student that I worked with that, yeah, she had aphantasia too.
Okay,
But I think there was another word for it, and I can't remember what it was, but, she had a hard time, like, for instance, when you're taking science notes, if you're like learning about geology, learning about plate tectonics, and you're learning about, the stratification of the earth and stuff, like, I can visualize that. And I like to draw that out if I'm helping students try to remember, well, this is how you see it, kind of thing. Well, they can't pull that off the paper and visualize that, and so that's not helpful to them, kind of thing.
right.
So, but some people, it's helpful to visualize that on paper, and then they remember it better. So like,
Kind of going back to Julie's thing about the clipboard, and she had the verbal clipboard, I know when I was doing studying, I would have a list of words, that would be a concept, like, remember, I got accused of cheating in my art history class because I had all these little words, because they would show the image and I would quickly write down my words, and each word had a whole entire concept with it. So I had these little list of words, and then, anyway, I don't know why the professor thought I was cheating, but, it's like too, but I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours trying to remember that, and then the minute the test was done, it was, oh god.
yep,
Yeah.
same.
So I did not realize that I had this until I was like 67 years old. I think that I recognized in my life that I had teachers that I understood better, and the teachers that helped me understand better were the teachers that were structured, so they weren't jumping all around the place because I couldn't keep up with that. And if I had some, like you went into feeling and how they act, but if I had things to tie together, like why do we need it this way? Why is this position, like I was trying to put other anchors onto my learning.
Right.
Because like history and dates, fool, like that like has no, I mean, I understand the need to have structure and a timeline and put things that way, but dates don't, I can't hold on to those things. So then that would kind of put me in a panic, and then I would get like panicked and tunnel down.
Yeah.
And then, as we all know, as you tunnel down in a panic, you can't see the forest for the trees because literally, so even just recognizing that students think about things differently can be enough to realize like, hey, some of you guys maybe can't picture this, and don't sweat it.
Right.
Like, here's a picture, it's not cheating, don't sweat it, it's a way to access it. So
Yeah.
just having that information.
Yeah.
And then you find your own way to put your strategies in.
And also my daughter was your student and she is very good technical drawer. So, you know, scientific drawing and, you know, so there, in some ways it's a gift. But I'm sure it was a relief also to find out, like, what is happening in my
And I
brain?
think it was more of the whole thing with, am I losing it, kind of thing, and I might be. You know? But now I have an excuse.
I'm kind of stuck on the apple from way in the beginning. Do you at least think of the taste of an apple when I mention honeydew versus?
Oh, I
Pink
can,
lady.
it's
Pink
not
lady.
like, it's interesting, if you listen to the podcast I did with Shane Williams, he goes through some of that, and some people they have it super strong too on there. So it's like being taste blind too or something, you know, where they can't, nope, that's off the table. But there are certain smells and certain tastes that I can imagine, but it's not like they can really taste it. But some people feel like they really can, you know, so.
It's kind of like when you're talking about food and then you're like, man, I'm really hungry, even though you just ate. Kind of thing. Like, so you're talking about some kind of recipe that, like, you remember from childhood and you're
Right.
like, man, I could go for that right now.
There's a sugar cookie that definitely have a
It
strong.
seems like motion prompts memory for you though. It seems like you're talking about the motion of the drill, running around the rocks, you know, it does seem like motion more than images.
Well, I was just like, she explained that there, you know, you have this clipboard, this clipboard, this clipboard. So if it's like, you know, how they say some people who don't have sight, all the other senses get enhanced,
Maybe.
that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've heard that, like, especially like the people who are blind with their eyes,
Mhm.
you know, not mind blind, but their other senses are.
So maybe
enhanced.
your senses work,
Maybe.
touch and that kind of stuff
Maybe.
draws up this more enhanced.
Any other questions? Wow, great conversation, right?
Until you said, I had no idea that this was visual.
Yeah, people don't, yeah.
Everything is visual.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no words.
Nothing runs through your brain? No, mine's a constant chatter.